Welcome, everybody. John Arvosis here, joining you with the Arvosis Report to talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Let me, as always, get TikTok rolling here, and then we'll have to see whether my map is the right way or the wrong way on TikTok, because TikTok's difficult, but we will see. Let me see what the TikTokers say. How's everybody doing? Waiting for our maybe snow. We don't know if we're getting a lot of snow or not, but we're getting hideously cold weather. I guess the whole country is getting hideously cold weather. So, but it's going to be like 1 degree here in a few days. And I'm not during the day, not very thrilled about that. Hello, Radoslav. Happy Tequila Tuesday. Honest to God. Hello, TikTok. So TikTokers, tell me, is it backwards or normal? Which way is the map? TikTokers. All right. Is it backwards or normal? The map. So which way was the map? Was that normal? That's normal? Okay. TikTok make it very difficult for me. Ginger, thank you as always. All right, guys. I think I'm going to start because I'll do the intro while we're waiting for people to come on. So I am John Arvosis. This is the Arvosis Report, my daily show where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine, and then we take your questions. I take your questions, to be more exact. Let me start by telling you guys, thank you, Benji, for the gift, how you guys can, thank you, Baby Shu and Marie, how you guys can give me your questions. Go to my profile, click the Q&A link on TikTok, put your questions there. The rest of you on YouTube and everywhere else, you can use the question, post a question link at the bottom of the page, post a comment, and please do follow me. I appreciate that. Probably the #1 way you guys can help me. And please do keep the gifts coming. Your gifts make a difference in supporting my work. So thank you for that. Super chat questions, TikTok gifts. Let's get rolling. So the big news that literally just broke in the last half hour is President Zelensky is scheduled to be in Washington tomorrow on Wednesday, excuse me. Thank you, Benji, to address a joint session of Congress. A joint session of Congress is when the House and the Senate sit together in the House chambers, because the House chambers are bigger. Thank you, Marie, for that. And typically it's reserved for heads of state or other very, very important people like heads of state. Zelensky has not left Ukraine since the war started. This will be his first visit abroad, coming to the United States. This is a big deal. Now, it remains to be seen whether the trip comes off because there are security concerns, of course, right? For Zelensky leaving the country and coming to Washington. I don't think there's concern about in Washington, meaning, you know, I think they've got that security, but getting him here is the issue. I will say, I think this trip is interesting in that it will certainly, as Jagsy is saying on TikTok, it will upset Russia. That's for sure. It shows the prominence Zelensky puts on relations with the United States and obviously the importance of U.S. aid overall, but also the U.S., thank you, Chaz, to some degree, I would argue, is leading the coalition, the international coalition, although, you know, we're a coalition of equals, but nonetheless, I think the U.S. is sort of helping to hold it all together. And it is also evidence of the fact that Zelensky is, I think, concerned about the Republican House of Representatives, which is not just a Republican House of Representatives, but a MAGA, a Donald Trump aligned House of Representatives, which is very anti-Ukraine and very pro-Russia and pro-Putin for a variety of very confusing reasons. The Trump family is very pro-Putin, and unfortunately that has filtered down to the politics, certainly on Fox News, certainly among Trump Republicans, but among Republicans overall, there is still pretty good support for Ukraine. So this is Zelensky's chance to come to the U.S., which, and again, just to remind folks, in case you're coming, I knew what we were talking about, the breaking news that President Zelensky is scheduled to come to Washington, D.C. tomorrow, Wednesday, to speak before a joint session of Congress, to speak before the United States Congress. He will clearly meet with President Biden as well. That's a given if he's in town. I guess the final point I want to make with this is how important these kind of relationships are. It is very important for Zelensky to meet with Biden. It is very important for Zelensky to meet with Senator McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate. Now, the Senate, the U.S. Senate, is still staying in Democratic control. So clearly, it's important for him to meet Chuck Schumer, who's the top Democrat. But I think even more important for him to meet and develop a relationship with McConnell, because McConnell, the top Republican in the U.S. Senate, has been very pro-Ukraine. And this is an example of what I'm talking about, where the Trump faction of the Republican Party, the MAGA wing, has been very bad on Ukraine because Trump told them to. I mean, that's basically it. The McConnell brand of Republicans, who are not MAGA Republicans, but, McConnell was willing to go along with Trump, are not this way. And McConnell is a great supporter of Ukraine. What will be interesting to see is the final thing, I'll say this and then we'll move on, is take a look and see how many Republicans show up at the speech before Congress tomorrow if Zelensky shows, because again, it's going to be based on security, whether he can even show up. But let's see how many Republicans show. I think you're going to see a number of House Republicans refuse to show at all, because again, Trump has told them Zelensky evil, Putin good, right? The second problem you're going to have, and this is not good. What I mean is, because we are expecting a very large snowstorm across the northern United States starting Thursday. It is expected to shut down the airports. It is going to, at the very least, it could be a huge snowstorm. Just as importantly, it is bringing horrifically cold temperatures of 0 degrees Fahrenheit. You can do the math for Celsius, whatever it is there. I'm talking 0 degrees during the day, like not a happy thing here in Chicago. And it could mean that the airport closes in Chicago, for example. Chicago is the hub for the center of the country. If Chicago gets screwed up, all these members of Congress who want to leave Washington and get home in their states for Christmas is Sunday, aren't going to be able to do it if they try to leave on Thursday. Thursday is when the storm starts to hit Chicago. O'Hare's. So this is an issue where I think Zelensky, thank you, Louis, for that. I don't think Zelensky could have helped it. Actually, losing power as well. That's a great point. Thank you. Ashley's mentioning that on TikTok. Zelensky couldn't have helped it because he wants to do this, obviously, before the new Congress comes. But this is not going to be great. I fear we're going to lose a lot of members of Congress because they're going to want to get home before this huge blizzard hits and shuts down much of the northern part of the country. So let's see what happens tomorrow with this. A quick little thing before we go on with the news. We are doing a fundraiser for kids. Thank you, Happy Beach. Oh, Happy Beach family. Just got your stuff mailed off today, as you know. We're doing a fundraiser to get gifts for Ukrainian kids who are in need, particularly kids, orphans. We're going to be having our folks in Ukraine going to orphanages, helping kids with disabilities. And I'd like your guys' help. We've raised $2,800 so far. We need $15 per child. Thank you, Frank, for that. $15 per child. That means, I wrote this down, we've got enough money so far to help 187 kids. Thank you, Brian. Brian already donated. Thank you for that. And I'd like you guys to help if you can. We're working with a charity in Ukraine. 100% of the money we're taking is going to go to the kids. I'm actually even having you donate the money via my friend Vlad in Ukraine, who works with the charity. Vlad, we've done all of the fundraising via Vlad for the last 10 months. Thank you, El, for that. So you can trust Vlad. But I want to make sure it obviously clear that I'm not getting anything out of this. I just want to help the kids. You can donate. Thank you for asking, Jaw, for that. Thank you, Ali, as well. You can donate on TikTok. The easiest thing to do probably is to go to my profile on TikTok. You'll see the Linktree link. And if you click the link, the very first thing that comes up, actually, I'll show you guys really quick. I always like to show because I think it's easier just to see. So we go to TikTok, my Linktree link. You can see it's the big link there above tips. It's the one big link on the page. I click it. This page opens, and you'll see the very top one is our fundraiser. And then the next one down is for another fundraiser that you can also help out to answer kids' letters to Santa. But the very top one is our fundraiser, and it gives you Vlad's PayPal. I was just showing folks on TikTok how it works. But you can also just go to erevosis.com, and it'll take you to that same page, and you'll see Vlad's PayPal. I can't even speak today. Vlad's PayPal information. Let me put this up for you guys again on TikTok, on YouTube, and everywhere else. So if you guys can help, I'd appreciate it. But thank you so much. Thank you, Brandy Moore. So yeah, help the kids if you can. Erevosis.com is the easiest way to get Vlad's PayPal. Let me keep going here. So the bipartisan budget deal. So this is good news. The Republicans and Democrats in Washington have been trying to reach a deal to fund the budget, right? There's a risk, to fund the budget. It's to, it's a mess. I mean, it's a mess. And there was a risk of the government being shut down. There was a bipartisan deal that they negotiated. It looks pretty good. Republicans and Democrats are both pretty happy with it. It now has to go and be voted on. Thank you, Hazel, in the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. It includes a significant portion of additional money for Ukraine. Let me say this. For the Ukraine war overall, it's $44.9 billion with a B, okay? 44.9, which is about the same amount in euros if you're European. The thing I will say is, and this is something to keep in mind with Ukrainian money overall, it's not always clear that money is only going for military aid. It's not. So let me tell you, for example, okay, $44.9 billion extra, but listen to what it's going for. $9 billion to arm, equip, and train Ukrainian forces, okay? So $9 billion will provide weapons, but also training for the Ukrainians. $7 billion is going to support U.S. troops in Europe, because the concern is obviously we've been increasing U.S. troops in Europe just in case something happens with Russia and we end up at war with Russia. So that's extra money the U.S. needs anyway, even if people don't want to give more money to Ukraine. We need the extra $7 billion for our troops, okay? $687 million for Army ammunition plants to build additional ammunition capacity because we're running low on ammunition. So that, again, is helping America. I mean, I'm saying this for the American audience so they understand that helps America. $300 million for Ukrainian police and border. That helps Ukraine. $13 billion in economic assistance to Ukraine. That's because Ukraine, their economy is in shambles right now, right? The economy is expected to drop by or to shrink by like a third because the Russians are destroying everything. What happens if economy shrinks? The tax income shrinks, but the government's liabilities don't shrink. In other words, the government is still having to pay pensioners. The government's having to pay civil service employees. They're having to pay especially nowadays, to redo the roads, right? So the government budget is the same, but all of a sudden you've lost a third of the income because a third of your economy's gone. They need help with that too. Anyway, so suffice it to say, and then finally some money for refugees too. But there you go. Let me just do a quick reset and we'll keep going here. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report, my daily show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S., where I talk about the latest news from Ukraine. And then I take your guys' questions at the end. Please do follow me on TikTok and YouTube and elsewhere. And please do keep the gifts coming as well. I am independent media, and your guys' support is how I keep going. So I appreciate that. And I've got a Patreon as well you can check out if you've been visiting me for a few months now and you like what I'm doing. Maybe go over to Patreon and sign up for $5 a month if you can afford it. It helps me out. Patreon.com/Aravosis. And again, you can just go to aravosis.com and all my stuff's there, including the fundraiser for the kids. That's the most important thing I got to push for you guys. Russia is making more empty threats. This time they're combining the Belarus threat with the nuclear threat. Now, let me show you on the map real quick. We've been talking about Belarus a lot. Belarus is a dictatorship in cahoots with Russia that is more or less right here. I did it again. Every freaking time I do it, I poke my finger because I always forget. There's a pin up there that I'm holding this on with. Exactly. I think you need a drinking game for every time I poke my finger. Belarus is up here. It's a dictatorship run by a guy named Lukashenko. He helped Ukraine invade. He helped Russia invade Ukraine. He has not been invading with his own troops. He has been letting Russian troops come through his country and basically attack Ukraine from his country. Well, Putin has been trying to get the Belarusian army to invade Ukraine because he wants their help and he wants to open up another front. Thank you, Noah, for that, for the super sticker. Let me show you here. Now, the reason you keep hearing about Belarus is Putin wants either one of two things. He either wants Belarus to enter the war because he wants to have another front in the war up here, right? Already, the big fronts in the war right now are here in Kherson and over here in Bakhmut and Kremina in the east, okay? So here in the east and then here in the south. Putin would like to open another front here just to keep the Ukrainians busy. I know the pin's up there. Thank you for warning me, Smash. he wants to basically tie down Ukrainian troops here at the Belarusian border, because if Ukrainian troops are tied up here, they're not fighting down here and they're not fighting down here where they should be fighting. That means, one, Putin wants to get Belarus to enter the war and invade. But two, if they won't invade, he's got to keep making noise to try to make the Ukrainians think maybe the Belarusians are going to invade, because Ukraine doesn't have a choice but to play it safe and to keep a bunch of troops up here anyway, just in case. And if the Ukrainians are forced to keep a couple thousand troops or more here just in case, they're troops who are not fighting here and are not fighting here. So that's why you're always hearing about Belarus, because it's a combination of Putin trying to get them to invade, but also trying to play a little bit of a fake in case they don't invade, to keep the Ukrainians thinking maybe Belarus invades and Ukraine then wastes a bunch of troops, putting them up there just in case. Now, the thing you would have heard, the most recent little threat from Putin, is also a nuclear threat. And this is something that I like to raise, because I've explained before that I do not think Putin's nuclear threats are real. Certainly his nuclear threat against the West, forget it. He's never going to nuke London. He's never going to nuke Washington or Berlin, because we are all NATO countries. It would be literally nuclear war if he did that. If he attacked us, we'd attack him with nukes. It would be the end of the world. He knows it. It's not going to happen. As far as using nukes in Ukraine, that's a different story. But I still think it's not going to happen, because it's generally considered by the experts that there is no value in Putin using nuclear weapons in Ukraine. It doesn't really give him any kind of additional benefit. It's not, thank you, Jesse, for that. It doesn't give any additional benefit, and it actually causes a lot of harm to his cause, because if the Russians were to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, I think NATO wouldn't have a choice but to join the war in some way. We might not declare war on Russia, but I think we would absolutely set up some kind of a no-fly zone, where all of a sudden we tell the Russians, we're not joining the war, but if you dare, send any radar, any planes, anything, any helicopters, we're going to be shooting them down over Ukraine. So I just don't see him doing it. Now, if you're Putin, your job is to convince the West that you will use nukes, right? Putin needs to keep scaring us. So why? So that we keep having these discussions where we say, oh, let's not give Ukraine fighter jets. Let's not give Ukraine tanks. Let's not give Ukraine long-range rockets, because we don't want to make Putin angry, because if he gets angry, he might use his nuclear weapons, right? Look at what happened with the Patriot missiles, the missile systems that are now in principle going to Ukraine pretty soon from the U.S. for shooting down. They're missiles that are used to shoot down incoming missiles, okay? We've been holding off on sending these forever, in large part because we didn't want to make Putin angry, right? So if you're Putin, you want to keep NATO allies thinking, oh, you're making me angry, you better be careful. Well, here's what Putin did. Listen to this. Russia will continue training Belarusian Air Force pilots. Belarus is that country I told you up and to the left, right, northwest of Ukraine, ally of Russia. They're going to be training Belarusian Air Force pilots this is great. Listen to this. The Belarusian airport pilots to fly combat jets that have been refurbished to carry a special warhead. He literally used the phrase special warhead. Everyone thinks he means nuclear warhead. The whole thing is just so freaking stupid. Thank you, Perfect. Now, first of all, I got news for you. If you're Vladimir Putin, you know that anybody using nuclear weapons, even a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, risks nuclear war with the West. Because if you're NATO, and you look at this and you see a nuclear weapon used in Ukraine, you're going to put all of your nuclear forces on alert, because you're not going to know what's going on. You're not going to know, for example, has the Russian government gone crazy? Has there been a coup? Right? Is there some lunatic who took over Russia that now is launching nukes? Is a nuke coming at Poland? Is a nuke coming at America, at Britain? Thank you, Al, for that. So you already are risking a nuclear war by even attacking Ukraine, because everything gets so scary, right? That's the first big problem there. Second of all, if you're worried about the West retaliating in a nuclear way, which he should be, do you really think he's going to equip Belarus with nuclear weapons and give Belarusian pilots the ability to use Russian nukes? Think about that, right? I mean, think about that. I think it's too great a risk. I think him literally giving the Belarusians the ability to start a nuclear war is something that Putin would never do. That, again, my point is, he's BSing us. Even the fact he's announcing a special warhead, even the way he does it, he's not even telling us it's a nuclear warhead. He's playing a cute little game because he wants us to think we're being played with. That's what's going on with it. I just don't take the man seriously. Let me, what was I doing here? Keep going. UK British Ministry of Defense says that Putin is trying to deflect blame away from himself this week. On December 16th, which would have been about 4 days ago, Putin visited the joint headquarters of the Special Military Operations, so the headquarters, sort of the overall headquarters for the Russian war effort, and he was filmed meeting. This is an interesting point that the British Ministry of Defense says that this was all a photo opportunity. Putin did this on purpose because it was for propaganda purposes, right? So Putin had himself filmed meeting with a number of senior military officers involved in the war, including the chief of the general staff, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in Russia. In other words, the top uniformed military official in Russia, the Russian defense minister. He invited proposals for next steps for the special military operation from a number of the top military brass who were there, and they presented him with their proposals. And what the Ministry of Defense says in Britain was, this is likely aimed to deflect Putin's responsibility for the military failure, for the high fatality rates, and increasing public dissatisfaction. This guy's a piece of work. He wanted to be seen on TV meeting with all the other heads of the war so that he was showing the public, I'm not in charge of the war. I'm meeting the defense minister, right? I'm meeting the top general. I'm meeting the other top generals. I'm asking them for their proposals of what I should do next, because sure, Putin will pick the proposal, but guess who came up with the proposal? General so-and-so. So he's trying to spread the blame now among everybody. Real piece of work. But I would say that's still very interesting because, look, the guy's a dictator and he's a brutal dictator. But the fact that he's worried enough that he still feels like, hey, I better spread the blame around is, to me, interesting. At least it projects a little bit of weakness, actually. Reuters had an article about the United Nations behaving badly. The U.S. has accused United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres of, quote, apparently yielding to Russian threats, according to Reuters, and not sending officials to Ukraine to inspect drones used by Russia. The Brits, the French, the Germans, and the U.S. have accused the Russians of buying Iranian drones in violation of UN sanctions from 2015 that were part of the nuclear deal. And we've asked the UN to go to Ukraine and do an inspection of the drone pieces and take a look themselves and see if this is in fact the case. Well, Russia has been browbeating the UN, and the Secretary General is now saying, well, we don't need to go there to investigate. We're going to just continue investigating with the information we've got. The UN's playing games now. Russia was able to browbeat them, which is, too bad, but typical because we're dealing with the United Nations, which, as I've said, I've worked at. It's a pathetic place. I'm sorry, but it's a very pathetic place. The UN is scared. Now, the reason the UN's scared is one thing you may not know. The reason the UN is scared is because guess where the UN budget comes from? Everywhere. Every country in the world practically has to give a certain portion of its money to the UN's budget. Now, there's the UN headquarter budget, okay? So that the big building, the headquarters of the UN Secretary General, that big square building in New York, right? So there's the headquarter budget. That's the one where the U.S. Thank you, Amanda. The U.S. has to spend like 22% or something of the budget we have to pay, and basically, depending on how big your economy is, you pay. There's the budget for the separate UN agencies, and that's different. That budget isn't mandatory. So the agency I worked at, United Nations Development Program, UNICEF, UN, was it the High Commission on Refugees or whatever, all of these agencies have to go around the world and beg for money, okay? That makes them all very, what's the word I'm looking for? Corruptible. When I was at UNDP, we would do things all the time and change what we were doing because we didn't want to offend a donor, right? So in this case, he's worried about money. He's worried about Russia, but I think he's also worried about China. jumping in and possibly playing some games with the funding. It's unfortunate, but the UN is not, as I've said, the UN is not exactly a innocent kind of happy place. So anyway, I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. And then I do a question and answer in the second half of the show. You can ask your questions on TikTok via the Q&A link in my profile. That's probably the easiest way to do it. On YouTube, you can submit the questions at the bottom. Please do keep your gifts coming. That's the best way to support my work. I'm doing this for free, full time, and I appreciate your guys' support. So on TikTok, those gifts help. Super chat, super stickers on YouTube, and follow me as well. And finally, I've got a Discord as well. We've got a little more news here. I've got a Discord as well, discord.aravosis.com, where we got a lot of cool things going on. Please do join us at the Discord hangout, usually after the show. Tonight, probably not, because we're running to see some Christmas lights, but that's pretty cool too. Let me keep going. New York Times. The New York Times had an interesting story updating on the situation with the energy situation in Ukraine. So they said that the repeated Russian bombardment of energy infrastructure in and around Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, thank you, Blue Sky, have left the Ukrainian capital with only enough power for about 20% of the city's 3.3 million residents. The result is that they have now had to have rolling blackouts of about 10 hours a day. Power is not available to various, to basically people in Kyiv. Because imagine you only have enough power for 20%. I mean, crazy, sad. Russia. Oh, this was a great quote. This one I think you'll like. So this was a Russian member of parliament bragging that anybody saying Russia isn't doing well in the war, they're wrong, because actually Russia has achieved its goal of demilitarizing Ukraine. Now listen to this. Thank you, Kanowski, for that. Listen to this quote. Russian member of parliament Oleg Medvedev said in a clip shared by the BBC journalist Francis Scarr, who's very good. If you see Francis on Twitter, for example, I know Twitter we don't like anymore, but nonetheless, there's some good stuff on there. Francis has a really good Twitter account. Says that this Russian member of parliament claimed on state television that most of Ukraine's ammunition and weapons are now from NATO. And all their original equipment, all the original Ukrainian equipment is gone. So Russia achieved its goals of eliminating Ukraine's military equipment. Did you get this? Russia's goal was to get rid of Ukraine's military. Now, mind you, Russia's goal was to get rid of Ukraine's military and basically make Ukraine forced to be neutral because they had no military at all. What happened was that, yes, the Russians have destroyed or whatever a lot of Ukrainian weapons, and instead they've now got NATO weapons. They've got American weapons, they've got British weapons, they've got German weapons, they've got French weapons, and Polish weapons, and everybody, Czech weapons. The weapons the Ukrainians have are so much better than the weapons that they had at the beginning. And for this guy to claim, oh no, we won. We said we were going to get rid of their weapons, and we did get rid of their weapons. Well, I guess you did. I just think it's the funniest damn thing. I mean, they're just, and mind you, and showing him on state media so that he's telling the Russian people, so the Russian people can go, oh yeah, you're right. Yay, good for our side. Good for your side. Ukrainian minister says that Ukraine is going to receive over 10,000 Starlink systems. Starlink is Elon Musk's satellite internet system. In the coming months, it wasn't clear from what he said whether Musk was going to be paying for it or what. You'll recall there was a controversy not early on, but a couple months ago, because Musk had stepped up at maybe not the beginning of the war, but several months in, and said, he's going to be the savior of Ukraine and provide Starlink for free. And then a couple of months later, he said, this is really expensive. I'm going to turn it off in 2 weeks. Unless somebody steps in and pays for it. And he got a lot of trouble for that because it looked pretty bad. And so then he got all like snippy in response to people getting pissed at him and said, fine, nobody else is getting paid, but I'm just going to do it anyway. And I'm going to turn Starlink back on again. So who knows what's up with him? I will say this, and I've learned this now from just the last 6 to 7 weeks of following Elon Musk on Twitter. The man is a serial liar. And I don't say that in a way of a personal attack. I say it in a very sad analysis of what I've seen. He's a serial liar. So that you cannot believe anything he says. I think half of what he says are lies, and the other half, he is so flippant and gullible that the guy says something, and tomorrow he's going to change his opinion 100%. And the day after that, he's going to change it again 100% because somebody else whispered in his ear. He's flighty. Flighty is the word I'm looking for. He's flighty and he's a liar. So I hope Ukraine gets these Starlinks, but I think at this point, as my friend David Frum had said, we've got to find funding for the Starlink because you can't trust Musk. And Musk, he'll cut them off. Putin's already whispering in his ear anyway. We know this, right? Finally, this is kind of a neat little final story here. CNN is reporting that the Ukrainian military discovered an ancient Roman settlement. Ukrainian border guards who have been building fortifications on the bank of the Dnipro River. Now, the Dnipro is this big old river that cuts Ukraine in half. So all the way here. Okay. Now, my guess is, I don't know if it says where. It's not saying where. And my guess, it's hard to say actually, because fortifications could be down here. It could be up here that you're building fortifications because you're worried about the Belarusians invading. Could also be down here because the Ukrainians pushed in the town, the region of Kherson. The Ukrainians pushed the Russians south across the river, across the Dnipro. So now the Ukrainians are on the north and the Russians are on the south. So the Ukrainians could be building on the north of the Dnipro here in order to stop the Russians from, being able to attack them. But regardless, they found the remnants of an ancient Roman civilization, a settlement, pieces of amphora and pots. Amphora are like, the big urns storing, I want to say, oil and other things like that. They found remnants of pots and oil at a depth of about 3 feet, which is just totally cool. I love archaeology. I mean, like that just strikes me as so cool. In any case, final little pitch I'll do is we've also got a store set up at store.aravosis.com. And I've got Ukrainian themed shirts, hoodies, things like that. And I'm taking the proceeds from that store, and up until now, since I've opened it, half the proceeds are going back into Ukraine for humanitarian aid, and half the proceeds are supporting my work. So let's shift back to here. So please do follow me on TikTok, on YouTube. Just to remind folks, I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. It's my nightly show where we go through the latest news from Ukraine, and then I answer your questions. Just finishing up the news portion now, so we can switch over to the question and answer portion. On TikTok, the easiest way to make it sort of so that I don't sort of lose the questions is to submit your questions via the links on the Q&A link in my profile. So if you go there, on YouTube and everywhere else, obviously you can use the comment box at the bottom. Also, I appreciate your guys' gifts. They do help keep my work going. They help finance my work. So if you want to keep the gifts going on TikTok, I appreciate it. I will do a shout out when I see them, and on YouTube as well. Let's jump in, kiddies. The story about the artillery. Yes. So I forgot to even mention it. So tomorrow we are due to finally receive our video of the artillery piece that we are sponsoring in Ukraine. You may recall, anybody who's new to the show may not know this, but we had raised a little over $4,000. Thank you, Tattooed Mom, for that. We raised a little over $4,000 to sponsor an artillery piece in Ukraine. Artillery, like those big guns with the huge muzzles, right? Really long. They shoot like 25 miles, that kind of thing. And we raised money to sponsor one. They're going to put our message on the side, and the message was for Bucha, because Bucha, you'll recall, is the town north and a little bit west of Kyiv, Ukrainian capital, where the first really awful Russian human rights abuses were uncovered. So we've sort of dedicated it in the name of Bucha. They're going to take the video of it firing off, in our name, which is very cool. And anyway, so I got the feedback tomorrow that it should be coming. And then they take the proceeds, and a portion of the proceeds go to basically helping the military get more material. and more, jackets and shoes and everything, Starlink, UAVs, drones, you name it. So it's pretty cool. And my guess is, even though I don't know officially, my guess is the military guys probably get some money themselves. But you know what? Hey, if you're willing to risk your life fighting the Russians, I'm willing to have a little bit of the donation, go to help some of the Ukrainian military guys. So very cool. Yeah, so we should get that tomorrow. And then I'm going to reach out to my contacts at TikTok and find out, can I even post it? Because I'm a little worried. Thank you, Benji, for the galaxy there. I'm a little worried as to whether I can even post it on TikTok because I'm not sure artillery firing might be a little heavy for TikTok. We'll see. I can put it on Twitter. I can put it in my Discord, but I hope I can put it on TikTok. But at the very least, I can put a picture. I can put a picture of it, I suspect. But as I said, I've got to talk to them. Thank you, Hazel, for the swan. All right, what else we got here? Oh, I see that. Was that Ben? That was Ben. Sorry, Ben's got a question, super chat question on TikTok. What do you think Russia's response will be to Zelensky visiting D.C. tomorrow? Or are we likely to hear more threats from Putin? We are likely to see Putin bomb the hell out of Kyiv and bomb the hell out of Ukraine again. YouTube, by the way, I think would have the same problem with weapons going off. I think they would. Putin's going to blow up Ukraine again, and now he's blowing them up anyway. He's going to do one of his big blowups because of Zelensky being in Washington, meaning they're going to use an especially large number of drones and missiles. The problem is, the thinking is the Ukrainians are saying that Putin really only has enough missiles especially to do like 3 or 4 more big attacks. So this is going to be one of them. But I don't think he's going to have a choice. I mean, and he's so thin-skinned anyway. He's going to respond by blowing up Ukraine. I think he is. So, what do you do? He's a jerk. But yeah, they'll be pissed. He'll be pissed. It'll, Oops. YouTube, I don't know. YouTube might have problems with weapons. I don't know. Thank you, Paramarin. Oh, Paramarine. See, I always get your guys' names like the short name up at the top with the gift. It's funny. And then I look at the bottom. I remember you. Thank you for that. See, now that I see Paramarine, I remember your name. All right, TikTok. Let me go here and look at the Q&A link. All right. Where do you think Erdogan will stand in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine? I mean, this is the President Erdogan, not Prime Minister, is he? I'm already forgetting which he is. You Europeans, it's so easy. It's so easy in America. It's always a president. The rest of the world, I get so confused. Erdogan, President Erdogan, Prime Minister Erdogan. I'm going to call him president. Okay, it is president. That's what I was going to say. Thank you, Bulgira. That's what I was thinking. He's President Erdogan. He's the president of Turkey. Turkey is a member of NATO. Erdogan likes to be difficult. He has good relations with Russia. He wants to preserve his good relations with Russia. He is not supporting, he is not supporting the sanctions against Russia, for example. So thank you, Big King. So it's not clear. I mean, it's not clear what he's going to do. Thank you, Tattooed Mom. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, Marion. Thank you for that. And no hard questions from you. I love, or did you miss giving me your hard question? That's what I'm guessing you might have done. If you did, feel free to put it there. But so far, he's been critical of Russia, called on sort of the war, the war's got to end. But he's been, helping Russia on the thank you, Happy Beach family, for that, for the wave. So we'll do our wave, or the wave for the whale. Do the wave for the whale. We've got our first whale of the evening. Thank you guys for that. Yeah, he's not being terrible, but he's, like I said, he's not obeying by the sanctions, which is not really helpful. But at the same time, his companies are selling things like the Bayraktar drones to Ukraine, which has been really helpful. So it's kind of a back and forth, really. I think he's trying to have it both ways. Oh yeah, brain dead today. See, I thought did you have a question? Oh, brain dead meaning you don't have a question. I see what you mean. Okay, even better. Marion's always got the hardest questions. So when Marion doesn't have a question, I'm kind of brain dead today too. I'm not sure why. I got a decent night's sleep, but yeah, we're going to see Christmas lights later at a neighboring town that has just totally cool Christmas lights. So, and before the cold and freezing cold comes, I mean, freezing 0 degree cold comes in. Can a NATO country join the war on their own accord? Also, the same question with Sweden and Finland. Yes. The problem becomes, and if you join the war, I'm not sure what happens with Article 5 because, you can't join the war. I would think, like, let's say Poland. Let's say Poland starts attacking. Oh, hey, Tiffany. Oh, gosh, this is funny. We've now got our trio of my trio of friends, my 2 friends that I went to the Russian Far East with. I've told you guys before how we went to Kamchatka together, to Petropavlovsk, and it was my friend Tiffany Markey, who's there on Facebook today. I just put her on the screen on YouTube, and my friend Marion, who is the one that just did the very generous gift without a question, who went with me as well to Russia. Oh, wow. Hey, Tiffany, we're all through. We have to do a phone call at some point, the 3 of us, and we'll catch up. We were saying, oh yeah. So the thing is, you don't want a situation where, for example, Poland decides to attack Russia and bomb Russia and sit there and go, nah, I'm NATO. If you attack me back, then Article 5 kicks in and you're at war with America and everybody else. That would not be cool. So I don't know how Article 5 is the article, meaning article is a legal term here for treaty. It's a portion of a treaty, the NATO treaty, right? North Atlantic Treaty Organization. We are all members of it signing this treaty that says that we will come to the aid of each other, that an attack on one is an attack on every member of NATO. But, it's a little weird. I mean, you can. The thing is, Jingle was saying, I don't think so. The thing is, any NATO country can attack anybody they want, right? I mean, look, we've bombed Iraq twice, okay? I mean, we attacked Iraq. We attacked Afghanistan. We're a member of NATO. But it puts you in a weird situation, though, if you get attacked back and you say, Article 5. Like I said, it's a little weird. I also think that what you're going to, and I'll look, a couple people are weighing in on Twitter, on YouTube on this, so I'll see what they're saying. You're also in the situation where I can't imagine a NATO country doing it, because I think, at least with what we're talking about right now, every NATO country knows the deal and knows, for example, they know they need the United States on board. Well, but here's the question. I mean, Frank is saying that on TikTok, NATO is purely a defensive treaty. Correct. But I wasn't saying Poland attacking. I'm saying Poland attacks Russia. Russia attacks back. That's what I was going to say. You've got to be the victim and not the aggressor. Now, here's the problem, though. Define victim and define aggressor, right? I mean, you could have a situation that's a little more fuzzy as far as who started it. In the end, here's the other question too. In the end, NATO is not a automatically we go to war kind of treaty. If a country feels it's been attacked, it invokes Article 5. And I mean, it can invoke, I think it was Article 4 they said first, but you invoke Article 5. And it calls a meeting of all the NATO heads, and the NATO heads get together, or the ambassadors at least get together, and they discuss, do we feel this is a legitimate invocation of Article 5, right? Maybe Poland invokes Article 5 and the other countries go, I don't think that's an Article 5. Even if everybody agrees to invoke Article 5, each country, and this was the thing that surprised me when I read it earlier this year, each country gets to agree to what degree it helps in the war effort, like how much aid it's going to provide. So it's not like everybody's at war necessarily. Now, my suspicion is this was a political development, because you don't want, I mean, pick some small country we've got in NATO. We don't want them getting something happening and all of a sudden we're at war. But I think part of it is World War I. I suspect part of it's World War I, where basically, in other words, sure, if you attack Poland, if Russia attacks Poland, we're at war. But I think they still wanted it to be something where it's not automatic. Whereas World War I was a little too automatic, where everybody went to war with everybody else. Anyway, just my guess on that. Sorry, I see a couple of you were weighing in on this. Ben was saying, I'm surprised the U.S. allowed Zelensky to visit. Oh, because of worrying about annoying Putin. I thought it would have been London or Warsaw. Yeah, and good point. Interesting. Stories will never be revealed. From what I heard, from what I heard of a NATO country, Ben is saying, if a NATO country attacks on its own, then if they are attacked, then Article 5 wouldn't be triggered because that NATO country attacked first without being attacked. Correct. I think Poland has already threatened Belarus if they try to invade Ukraine. Kelly is saying, I get the impression they don't care about Article 5. See, that's the other question is, I had heard the same thing, that Poland had apparently threatened Belarus, that if Belarus invades Ukraine, Poland's going to war against Belarus. But I think you're right. Well, okay, this is the lawyer in me. Marion, get ready for this one. So check this out. Okay, so hey, Azamek. So Belarus invades Ukraine. Poland attacks Belarus, right? In response. Poland isn't attacking Russia. Poland's attacking Belarus. Russia then, can Russia decide to attack Poland because Poland now declared war on Belarus? If Russia declares war on Poland, does Article 5 apply because Poland attacked Belarus? Poland didn't attack Russia. Now, the only question there would be if Poland knows that Russia and Belarus have a treaty so that Russia becomes part of the war automatically, does that also mean that it's really not defensive in that way because Russia attacked you? Do you get what I mean? Russia's attack on Poland triggers Article 5, but wouldn't it depend, Marion's saying that, wouldn't it depend on what the treaty, what the alliance is between Russia and Belarus? Right? MT History Buff is saying, as Belarus is not Russia, I think Article 5 may still be applicable, but it's fuzzy. But as I said, thank you, Motek, for that. But if Belarus and Russia have a mutual defense treaty, then attacking Belarus, you're attacking Russia. I would argue potentially. Devil's advocate. Marion wrote, no. No, I don't know what kind of treaties they've actually got. I wouldn't be surprised if they do have a mutual defense treaty. Russia can't influence how Article 5 is interpreted. I'm not saying influence. I'm saying if Russia and Belarus have a mutual defense treaty, if you attack Belarus, you're attacking Russia. Poland said, if Belarus invades Ukraine, you will meet us there. That was the quote? Oh, my. Oh, that's a good quote. Thanks, Kelly. These are all huge ifs and just what Putin wants. These theoreticals play right into Putin's hands, sadly. Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, I think it's something we would have to think about. I mean, if Belarus and Russia had a mutual defense treaty, we would want to think. We would want to at least think about it if we were. Now, mind you, Belarus also runs the risk of the U.S. blowing them off the map as well if they invade. This is an interesting thing, right? I see what you're saying. I see what Marion's saying. By striking an alliance with Belarus, Russia can't change Article 5. Okay, interesting. But I see what you mean. I see what you're getting at. Yeah, that's interesting. Russia does have a defense treaty with Belarus with the CSTO. See, that's the thing. I don't know. We allow non-members to influence Article 5's meaning, but that's not relevant. Sorry, Hazel. Mary and I are going to have a geeky lawyer discussion here. But per se, Russia declaring itself an independent state means Russia has already set up its own rules for how Article 5 works. I mean, it's if we attack Belarus, no. I don't. Yeah, I just don't agree with that. I don't think it works that way. I don't think it's saying they're non-members influencing Article 5 per se. They are saying if you attack one, you attack both. Is the point? I see what you're getting at. I just don't know that I agree. In any case, I'm not sure Poland would do this. I thought the Union state, which Belarus and Russia is a part of, they come to each other's aid if attacked. Why can't we get into Ukraine and NATO? Well, now we can't get Ukraine into NATO because the problem with that is Ukraine's already at war. They're already at war. So now if they join NATO, are we automatically at war with Russia, right? And with the fact that now Russia occupies a bunch of their territory, it means they're going to continue being at war. They're going to be at war again. I think there's no chance of them joining NATO, meaning even if this was settled somehow right now, I don't think they'd get it. Russia would need to invade Belarus, and everyone recognizes that it is part of Russia before Poland attacks. I see what you mean. Article 4 of the Collective Security Treaty establishes that an aggression against one signatory would be perceived as an aggression against all. See, that's the thing. Yeah, that's weird. Well, now, okay, this is the sense. What Elise says is actually correct. She goes, I've got a feeling that Article 5 of the NATO Charter means whatever the large members want it to. That's the thing. Now, I will say, going back again to Belarus, it's interesting because what I wonder is, what would the U.S. do if Belarus invaded Ukraine? Because you could argue that, yeah, we don't want to blow up. We don't want to go to war with Russia, but obviously we have no problem going to war with Belarus, right? We'd mop the Belarusian army up in one day. Now, the mutual defense thing with Russia means we'd probably be very careful about it, I think, Biden especially, but it's, interesting. People are getting, now we got them into the details of all of this. Putin would use tactical weapons. Well, the only thing is, it was 75 to 80% certainty if Ukraine joined NATO, Putin would use tactical nukes. No, because if Ukraine joined NATO, then it would be part of NATO. And if Putin used tactical nukes, he'd be nuking NATO and we'd have nuclear war. So I don't think he would do that. Ukraine did try to join NATO, Ben, back in 2008. And the French and the Germans were like, who was it? Sarkozy and Merkel, I believe, were like, no way, and sort of sabotaged the whole thing. So the Ukrainians have been wanting to join forever. And frankly, had they joined NATO, we would have avoided this whole problem because the Russians wouldn't have liked it, but the Russians wouldn't have attacked either. Marion's asking, we really got into this whole Article 5 thing of the NATO Charter. Marion's saying, does there have to be a NATO determination re-Article 5 applicability, or can it just be invoked by the attacked NATO member? Oh, no. It's no. They've got, because, for example, I had talked to a former NATO defense minister, not my uncle, this was more recent, and asked him about that, and he said, no. First of all, he goes, it's not like we all go to war automatically. It doesn't work that way. He said, the country that's attacked or that thinks it's been attacked invokes Article 5. Then everyone gets together, and he said, and decides whether NATO was even attacked, right? Whether this was even an attack. Now, the problem is NATO's got to agree. Now, what I'm wondering, and I think we looked into this, almost guarantee that an Article 5 determination has got to be unanimous. So all you need is Hungary or Turkey going, I mean, Turkey is going to say, I want more fighter jets. Hungary, who knows what Hungary's going to do, right? So it's going to, the whole Article 5 thing's a mess. It's a mess anyway. I think what you'd have happen, even without a unanimous thing, there is, I would argue, a de facto Article 5, meaning if any NATO country is attacked by Russia, the United States is going to war. Britain will go to war. That's a guarantee. I suspect the Baltic states would go to war. Poland most likely would go to war, like in general. Beyond that, I don't know. Norway, I'm guessing pretty good, right? But so even if NATO weren't to be unanimous, you'd already have the major players involved, So, Afghanistan Article 5 depends what you mean. Canada, yeah, I don't mean don't mean to forget Canada. Good point. Yep. Oh, Canada. Elise, it would be really cool when you get home to have a NATO expert guest on the chat. Yeah, I agree on that. Somebody who really knows just the ins and outs of NATO policy. Yeah, not NATO policy, but I mean NATO policy making, the legalities. I agree. That'd be really interesting. Yeah. And thank you for that, by the way, as well. But that would be really interesting. NATO in Yugoslavia, I'll bet you all the countries agreed because it was a NATO force. Yeah, they had to agree. Take a look and see, but I'll bet you it was. For Yugoslavia. If somebody wants to Google and see, but I'll bet you because it was a NATO military action and it is a NATO peacekeeping force. So that means it's got to be agreed to by all the members, right? NATO's a sad place? I don't think that. NATO's not a sad place. The United Nations is a sad place, not NATO. NATO's good. UN bad. NATO good. two different things. So, I don't know if Article 5 will be triggered. I don't know. I mean, I think it's best for Finland and Sweden to join. I think it's best for Sweden and Finland to join because in the end, Russia's going to keep pushing them around. Sweden especially. Well, just the reasons they joined because they finally said, you know what, this is not working. I worked for the UN for a year and left after basically suing my boss. So that's why I continue to hate on it. It's a horrific place. Horrific place. But anyway, but no, Finland is extremely capable, but the point is there's a reason Finland joined NATO. And I think it's the same reason Sweden did. They looked at what was going on with Russia and they said, you know what, we are safer as a part of NATO than not a part of NATO. It's coming back. Basically, the Soviet Union is back. That's my take on it. Doesn't mean they're not all strong, wonderful countries, right? All of us are nice, strong, wonderful countries and we're members of NATO. But I think they looked at it and they said, this isn't, the neighborhood isn't safe anymore. That's my sense. That's a good point. Yeah, NATO was meant to keep the Germans down, Americans in, and Russia out. Yeah, well, I'm not even going to make any jokes about that. Couple more minutes here, and then we'll call it quits, guys. MT History's always got interesting history here. A lot of the West seems content to have Russia bleed themselves dry in Ukraine at the expense of a lot of Ukrainians. True. This could have all been ended quickly with a strong show of international force. We could have put peacekeeping troops and the UN wouldn't have done it. We should have done it with NATO. We should have put peacekeeping troops in Ukraine, all over the country. And what would Russia have done? Even better, set up a no-fly zone before the invasion. You say, no, it's a no-fly zone. And this was my theory from the beginning, not my theory, my proposal. Putin told us up until the day of the invasion, Putin told us he wasn't going to invade. I would have said, that's great, because I'm setting up a no-fly zone and you're not invading anyway. So there's literally zero risk of any military confrontation between America and Russia because you're literally not invading anyway. So there's no problem. That's what I would say. Thank you, Zerpatsi. I can never learn how to pronounce your name, but I'll call it that. And the Russians would have been pissed, but I wish we'd done it. Now, whatever. I mean, politically, it might have been difficult because you've also got the situation where, the U.S. coming out of Afghanistan. And I mean, let's put it this way. It's amazing to what degree we have had strong support at home for Ukraine because we just got out of Iraq and Afghanistan after 20-year wars that didn't go well, right? And the thinking was, remember Trump was the big messenger on this. It's time for America to stop being the policeman of the world. And I mean, the irony is that was usually the message of a lot of people around the world: stop being the policeman. But so with that in mind, I think it's interesting. It's going to upset the Russians. I couldn't care less. I mean, I really don't. I think, unfortunately, yes, it'd be nice if we all have peace and understanding all the time. The Russians are going to get upset, and at some point, we've got to do to them what they do to us, which is say, you know what, you don't like it. That's great, but you're not going to bomb us. So, too bad you don't like it. But that would be my response to them at some point. All right, let me do a quick little a recap of the stories we covered today, and then I think I'm going to call it quits because, as I said, I'm going to get some dinner, and then we're going to head out in a little bit and go see the Christmas lights in town. Oh, man. Hungary, somebody's asking about Hungary and Turkey's votes with regards to, should I miss anything here? Yeah, Hungary and Turkey's votes with regards to letting Finland and Sweden join NATO. The Hungarians have already said that they're going to have a vote at the beginning of the year, so that should happen pretty quickly. Turkey is still demanding things from Sweden, I think, because, for example, we saw recently Sweden extradited some Kurd in their custody to Turkey, and that was clearly a demand. I say that was clearly a demand from Turkey, okay, clearly. And I think Turkey is maybe trying to get some F-16s or something out of America as well. I wouldn't be surprised. So, who knows? All right, let me go here real quick. So Zelensky, the big story today actually was President Zelensky is due to be in Washington tomorrow. He's going to speak to a joint session of the U.S. Congress tomorrow night. We are still doing our Christmas fundraiser for the kids in Ukraine. You can go to my profile on TikTok, the link tree in my profile. Very first thing up there tells you how to give via PayPal to my friend Vlad. The rest of you can either use it on the screen, Naprokovsky, or again, for any of you, just go to erevosis.com, mylastname.com, and you can see everything there. How to donate to this fundraiser for the kids, how to see my Discord, how to check out my store, how to go to my Patreon and chip in, all sorts of different ways you can help and get involved. But for this one, we're raising money to buy gifts for Ukrainian kids. Please go there and check it out and chip in if you can. Thank you, dear Benji, for those. Those are so bizarre. The Congress may be on the verge of reaching a bipartisan budget deal that would provide $44.9 billion in emergency military aid and economic assistance for Ukraine, but it isn't exclusively for Ukraine. Some of it would go to the U.S. to build up our stocks. Some of it would go for U.S. military in Europe and beyond. Still, it would be a good thing. Russia is making bizarre threats about training Belarusian pilots. Thank you, Dawn, for that. Training Belarusian pilots to carry a special warhead on their planes. In other words, training them to use nuclear weapons or some bullshit, which isn't going to happen. The UK Ministry of Defense says Putin is trying to deflect blame from how badly the war is going. Excuse me, he just had a recent meeting with the senior heads of the war at the Special Operation Military Command Headquarters, and basically he's doing it to do a big bear hug, no pun intended, around the other military leaders in Russia, so that on TV everyone goes, oh, that's right, it's not just Putin, it's the general, it's the defense minister, it's blah, 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 blah. So he's feeling a little weak, it seems. The UN is not being very helpful in response to a request by Britain, France, Germany, and the U.S. to go to Ukraine to investigate these drones, the kamikaze drones that the Iranians have been selling the Russians, seemingly in violation of United Nations sanctions. The Ukraine energy infrastructure in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, now has enough power only for about 20% of the city's 3.3 million residents. This was a funny story. A Russian, like my eyes always water when I yawn. A Russian member of parliament claims that Russia has achieved its goal of demilitarizing Ukraine because Ukraine's weapons have pretty much been used, and now they're using NATO weapons. That means Ukraine's weapons are gone. So Russia achieved getting rid of Ukraine's weapons. Again, whatever you got to do to win. Ukraine says that they are going to receive over 10,000 Starlink internet systems in the coming months. And finally, CNN says the Ukrainian military discovered an ancient Roman settlement while digging up fortifications for the war along the Dnipro River. So very cool. Okay, guys. All right. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. I didn't even have an allergy. Usually I have an allergy pill. When I have an allergy pill, I'm like yawning at the end of my shows. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate this. Thank you, Soleto. I am going to skip, as I said, I'll skip the Discord tonight because I want to go see what we're doing about dinner and then head out with my family to see the Christmas lights. But we'll be back tomorrow, and tomorrow I can go to the Discord as well. Tomorrow's Wednesday. Gas explosions, nothing else there. We make sleet. Not even sure what that is. Oh my God, I'm just yawning, guys. I don't know why. I'm totally yawning here tonight. Oh my gosh. As I knock something over here. It's a disaster. Okay, see you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. There you go. Enjoy the show. And thank you, mods, as always. Thank you guys for your gifts. But yeah, moderators in particular, always good to have you guys going after the trolls. And thank you, Marcy, for the little TikTok. We'll be honored that you did the little TikTok game controller for me. All right, you guys, goodbye here.